There are lands where every step forward must be paid for by a loss somewhere else. I stand before the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, watching the ground breathe beneath hooves, beneath blood, beneath fresh grass, and I begin to understand something very slowly. Here, life does not grow out of peace. It grows because it is tested to the edge. Perhaps that is why each migration season is not merely a search for water. It is the oldest question nature still asks again and again. If a species wants to live, how much is it willing to pay? From a distance, I do not see individuals. I see a mass in motion, as if the grassland itself were pulling its own body toward the horizon. Hundreds of thousands, then millions of heavy-headed, high-shouldered, sloping-backed animals cover the earth in a trembling gray-brown tide. Each time the wildebeest pass, dust is whipped from the dry ground, grass is shorn low, the air changes, the earth changes. Even the breathing rhythm of the savannah changes. People often say they are only following the rain. I think it is more than that. I think they are dragging life itself behind them. Each year, roughly 5 to 2 million wildebeest take part in the Great Migration of the Serengeti Mara system needs verification. Alongside them move hundreds of thousands of zebras and gazelles, needs verification. The journey can form a seasonal loop stretching hundreds to thousands of kilometers, depending on rainfall and grazing conditions. Needs verification. But if we see migration only as a line on a map, we miss the most important part. What is truly moving here is not just a herd. It is fertilizer, seed, predation pressure, grass cut low enough for new shoots to break through, and millions of hoofprints opening the surface so air and moisture can work their way down. Needs verification. Verification. On the scale of the ecosystem, wildebeest are almost a black river that runs on legs. When they reach the southern Serengeti during the rains, they do not arrive to admire fresh grass. They arrive to give birth. In a matter of weeks, hundreds of thousands of calves may be born almost at once. Needs verification. I have always felt that this is one of the harshest scenes in nature, and one of the strangest. The ground is still wet from rain. A newborn touches the law of this land almost immediately. It shakes its head, tries to pull in air, tries to gather its legs beneath its body, and then it stands. Many cows are on their feet within minutes. Not long after that, they must walk and run beside their mothers. Needs verification. On this land, childhood is so short, it almost does not exist. I watch a mother turn back, waiting for the exact instant her calf sways toward her. It is not tenderness in the way humans usually mean it. It is a command from life itself. Move, get up, follow me. If you are late, death will notice. Wildebeest are not elegant. They do not have the clean lines of zebra, the heavy menace of buffalo, or the hard precision of predators. But that very awkwardness says something about what this body is for. A deep chest for distance, strong shoulders for pulling through cracked ground, river mud, and low rises. A nervous system linked to the herd through calls, movement, scent, orientation, and what scientists often describe as a form of collective intelligence. Needs verification. When one cluster changes direction, the wave can travel quickly through thousands of bodies. No commander is needed. No leader stands apart. The herd writes its own reaction, but this is the part that always makes me pause longer. The wildebeest's greatest strength is its numbers, and those numbers are also the clearest invitation to every predator on the savannah. When calving season begins, the lions know. The hyenas know. The cheetahs know. Even the vultures circling overhead know. The smell of afterbirth, of fresh blood, of life with its eyes barely open cannot be hidden on flat grassland. And yet nature's paradox lies here. The more calves are born at once, the better each calf's odds of survival become. Ecologists call this predator saturation. overwhelming the hunting capacity of predators needs verification. The hunters cannot take them all. A few fall so the rest can keep moving. It sounds cold. But the savannah has never promised any species that fairness would be gentle. I once believed maternal devotion was strong enough to defeat everything. Then I watched wildebeest females close around a calf. A wall of horn, shoulder, and breath forms. It can hold a hyena back for a few seconds, deflect a rush, open just enough space for the calf to slip deeper inside. But that wall is not a miracle. It is only the body's final effort before the larger law of the grassland presses in. It is in that moment that I stop seeing this species as weak or clumsy. It is strong in an ancient way. Strong because it accepts becoming part of the many. Not radiant, not singular, but necessary. And there is another layer beneath that. Wildebeest do not run only to survive. They also nourish the land that tests them. Their dung returns nitrogen to the grass. Their hooves break the surface of the soil. Their grazing may even reduce fire fuel loads in certain areas. Needs. Purification. Their deaths feed crocodiles, lions, hyenas, vultures. Their lives feed the grass. The whole ecosystem is tied to the coming and going of the species. That is why I can no longer look at a wildebeest herd as a faceless crowd. On this land, they are circulation itself, a vast bloodstream moving through the plains. After standing there, watching calves stagger and then begin to run, I find myself drifting toward a question that numbers alone cannot answer. Who placed such urgency into those trembling legs that they must stand almost at once, even though the first world they touch is already full of teeth and claws? I do not answer that question. I only hear the hooves continuing past me like drums with no end. And I know that if the wildebeest wager on numbers, somewhere in the low grass, another species is wagering on silence, so complete it almost disappears. The dawn is just bright enough to sharpen the edge of the grass. Not bright enough to reveal everything that matters. I see them before the prey does. 6 lionesses pressed flat to the ground, ears pinned, shoulders rising only slightly beneath tawny coats. The distance may be no more than a few dozen meters. Needs verification. The wind is moving in the right direction. Suddenly the hunt becomes very small. There is no more horizon, no more continent. Only a few bodies lying lower than the grass, and a silent countdown no one can hear. People remember lions for the roar. I think the roar comes later. What makes a lion, at least in mornings like this, is the ability to vanish in a place with almost nowhere to hide. A lioness is the sharpest piece of that machine. Her body is lighter than a male's, less exposed, built to slide through grass, to stay low, to preserve everything for the last few seconds. On the savannah, an ambush is not a single movement. It is the discipline of many small decisions. How long to hold still, where to shift, where to stop, so the wind does not betray you, who takes the left edge, who circles behind. A pride of lions is one of the rare true societies among big cats. Females related by blood remain together for years. They hunt together, raise cubs together, defend territory together. Males hold the edges, reproductive rights, the line against outsiders. That division of labor makes a lion hunt feel closer to a military arrangement than a burst of instinct. If one zebra drifts from the herd, if one wildebeest turns too late, if one strip of grass conceals the final approach for a few extra meters, the entire balance of the hunt shifts. I watched a lioness stay so still that a fly landed on her back and left again without drawing a reaction. Only when the distance is short enough does she explode upward. The rush is not graceful. It is heavy. It is short. It is all intention directed at the neck. With zebra, buffalo, or adult antelope, precision matters as much as force. One mistake and the prey kicks free. One wrong angle and a horn can drive straight into the chest. A lion's food is never lying in wait on the ground. Every meal is bought with risk. That is the part the old stories about a king leave out. Even the male, with his dark mane and broad shoulders, does not live in certainty. The mane helps him look larger, helps protect the neck in clashes with rivals, but it also traps heat. It also makes him more visible in grass. His bulk is an advantage in confrontation, but it is also a cost when moving under a hard sun or colliding with a mature buffalo. On this land, power has never been free. What overturned my way of seeing lions is not the moment of victory, it is the minutes just afterward. When prey finally goes down, the lioness often does not eat at once. She stands there open-mouthed, panting, chest pumping hard. The body that was fierce enough to bring down a large animal suddenly shows itself as a machine that has burned through most of its available reserve. There is no triumphal music in that, only heat rising off the back, dust on the whiskers, and a constant scan of the surroundings, because the danger is not over. The smell of blood will summon hyenas, vultures will gather, a strange male may appear from the edge of the territory, the carcass just secured may start a second battle. That is where the throne people imagine for lions begins to crack. Lions do not rule by symbol. They rule from muscle, coordination, accepted injury, and the knowledge that every meal may come with a broken tooth, a torn shoulder, or a horn opening the belly. And then, inside all that brutality, there are moments I cannot forget. A mother rolling onto her side to nurse cubs, tail flicking flies away. Two cubs wrestling in the grass as though war were only a game they do not yet understand. One lioness licking blood from her sister's brow after the hunt, brief as a touch of recognition, you are still here. I do not call it tenderness, I call it the foundation of the pride. Lions survive not only because of fang and claw, they survive because of a family structure strong enough to keep cubs alive, hold ground, and carry hunting memory across generations of females. Watching those cubs tumble and rise against their mothers' bodies, I see that nature does not write its laws in violence alone. It writes them in attachment as well. And it becomes hard not to wonder in a system this exact, from the lioness at the front of the hunt to the male holding the boundary, whether every role was placed where it belongs long before humans learned to name the species living it. But on the savannah, collective power is only one path. Beyond the outer edge of the shadows, I can hear another sound, drier, rougher, less regal. Another pack is coming. They do not care about thrones, they only care who breaks first. If any animal on these plains is judged by its appearance more than by its function, it is the hyena. High shoulders, sloping back, uneven gait. A face that seems half laughing and half threatening. The body itself invites contempt. It makes people think of something lesser than a lion, less noble than a cheetah, dirtier than any other predator. But the longer I watch them, the more dangerous that misunderstanding seems, because it blinds us to one of the most efficient living systems on the savannah. Spotted hyena society is matriarchal. Females are larger, heavier, more aggressive. Rank is tightly enforced and passed through generations, and a clan may range from only a few individuals to dozens, even more, needs verification. In the dark, their laughter is not joy, it is social code. A set of sounds carrying submission, stress, excitement, conflict. If you really listen, it sounds less like delight than metal scraping against itself. Hyenas do not merely scavenge what others leave behind. In many areas, most of their diet comes from prey. They hunt themselves needs, verification. And they do it with two tools, less glamorous than almost any filmed hunt: endurance and collective nerve. A mature wildebeest may be stronger than any one hyena. But when several peel away from the clan, take loose positions, and hold just enough pressure for long enough, the mathematics of the chase begin to shift. Hyenas do not always need the first burst of speed. They need the prey to start losing air first. I used to think this kind of hunt was less cinematic than a lion's ambush. Then, I changed my mind. There is nothing more haunting than watching an animal realize it is not going to die immediately, but because its own legs are becoming heavier with every stride. The hyena's jaws are the final stage of that strategy. Their bite force is powerful enough to crush large bones. Needs verification. After the soft tissue is gone, they continue with cartilage, tendon, and bone. Very little is left behind. Their thoroughness is what lifts the hyena's role far above the image of thief that people like to give it. On the ecological scale, hyenas clear carcasses, return nutrients to the ground faster, and reduce the time disease can spread from bodies left too long on the surface. Needs. Verification. They are the unattractive but necessary part of the cycle. Without hyenas, the grassland would hold the smell of death much longer. The true turning point in how I see hyenas is not the jaw, it is the order standing behind the jaw. A high-ranking female may determine who feeds first, who is shoved outward, who gets close enough to share, who must wait at the edge. Power here does not roar like a lion. It works through distance, posture, one short shove of the head that is enough to remind everyone exactly where they stand. It is that system that makes hyenas both frightening and admirable. Because each individual is not hunting only for itself. It hunts inside a structure rigid enough to keep the clan alive through hard seasons. During wildebeest calving season, that efficiency becomes brutally clear. One calf loses rhythm. One gap opens in the mother's circle. One corner of the herd turns a fraction too slowly. A hyena goes in. No dramatic burst is needed. No elegant kill. It only has to notice disorder before the others do. And when I watch hyenas clash with lions over a carcass, I understand another layer. This is not simply competition for food. It is two models of power colliding. One depends more on ambush, body mass, and the structure of a female pride. The other depends on stamina, numbers, bone-breaking jaws, and a highly organized social mind. They rob from each other. They kill each other's young. They shadow each other. They force each other to become better. Hyenas make me think of the parts of nature people do not enjoy facing. The filthy part. The relentless part. The part that does not need to be loved to be valuable. Some species command wonder through beauty, some through dignity, and some hold an ecosystem together by consuming what everyone else leaves behind. I do not see anything low in that labor. I see a form of life designed for the heaviest part of the work. As the night begins to thin, I look up to the dead branches overhead. Large birds are already waiting for enough light to descend. And farther out, where the grassland opens fully, black and white stripes are moving. If hyenas teach me that discipline and social intelligence can be more terrifying than brute force, then the animals approaching now prove something else. Sometimes, the species that enters danger first is not a predator at all, but the one that opens the road. I have never seen two zebras that were truly the same. From far away, the herd is only a trembling field of black and white against yellow grass. Come closer, and each body separates. Each stripe pattern reveals a private map. Neck different, shoulder different, flank different. Those differences are so fine that I only notice them after standing still for a long time. A zebra herd is not one repeated design. Each animal carries a name that nature has written in hair. Their beauty is easy to misuse. The stripes are powerful on camera. They make any frame pulse instantly. But like every durable design in the natural world, beauty here has work to do. When zebras bunch together, those stark lines break up the outline of individual bodies, making it harder for a predator to lock onto one target in the opening seconds. Some studies also suggest the striping may help reduce pressure from biting flies by interfering with the way they perceive the animal's surface. Needs. Verification. Science will keep refining that picture, but the fact that a coat can be both personal signature and optical disruption is already enough to make me think zebras are one of the most intelligent designs on the savannah. They feed on older, coarser, tougher grass than many other grazers prefer. Their digestive system allows them to process lower quality forage in high volume needs. That is why, in many stretches of the migration, zebras move first, cutting the upper layer and leaving shorter, fresher growth for wildebeest and the animals that follow. I love that image. The species that looks the most decorative in the procession is doing some of the roughest work. It opens the road with teeth, with gut, with endurance. A mature zebra can run at roughly 60 to 65 kilometers per hour when escaping needs verification. But if we think speed is the core of its strength, we miss something more important. Zebras live through collective vigilance. Ears always turning, eyes constantly scanning sideways. The body may appear relaxed, but the nervous system never stops working. In family groups, one stallion moves with females and young. That structure helps stabilize the herd, but real safety does not reside in one dominant individual. It lives in the fact that the whole group is watching, hearing, and reacting together. One hard snort, one abrupt shift of gaze, and the entire herd can switch states almost at once. The thing I remember most about zebras happens at the riverbank. Not when they run, not when they kick a predator too bold to stay back, but when the herd stops. In front of them, dark water, slick mud. Whatever lies beneath the surface offers no explanation at all. Only the smell of old silt, old dung, rot, and current hiding something larger than fear. I always think the species that opens the way may understand danger better than any other, because it must be the first to step down into it. Then one zebra does exactly that. It tilts its head, places a hoof into the mud, jerks once as if reading the resistance of the ground, and leaps. The herd fractures behind it. In seconds, the bank becomes sound, splashing, collisions, breath. In that first instant, I understand that zebra courage does not mean absence of fear. It means fear in the step anyway. A zebra foal must learn the old lesson of the savannah almost immediately. Soon after birth, it must stand, run, recognize the scent of its mother, her voice, and especially her stripes inside a moving sea of similar bodies. Needs. Verification. To human eyes, the herd may look like a beautiful black and white pattern. To a foal, it is an examination in identification with mortal stakes. Follow the wrong body in chaos, and the cost may not be repairable. That may be why each coat feels like more than appearance. It feels like a message. A creature placed into a world of teeth and claws, yet given a signal precise enough to find its mother in the crowd. That small detail always slows me down. I do not speak easily about faith while standing among science, numbers, cameras, and grass. But some moments insist on silence. Watching a foal identify its mother by a pattern that to human eyes seems almost interchangeable is one of them. That precision does not need to announce itself. It only has to be exact enough to make me feel there is more depth in nature than whatever we manage to note down in our papers. And still, however well zebras open the way, they remain prey when the sun rises high and shadows pull inward. Because somewhere else in the open grassland, a more fragile body, a faster body, is about to wager its entire life on a burst lasting only seconds. A million wildebeest take part in the great migration of the Serengeti Mara system needs verification. Alongside them move hundreds of thousands of zebras and gazelles, needs verification. The journey can form a seasonal loop stretching hundreds to thousands of kilometers, depending on rainfall and grazing conditions. Needs verification. But if we see migration only as a line on a map, we miss the most important part. What is truly moving here is not just a herd. It is fertilizer, seed, predation pressure, grass cut low enough for new shoots to break through, and millions of hoofprints opening the surface so air and moisture can work their way down. Needs verification. Verification. On the scale of the ecosystem, wildebeest are almost a black river that runs on legs. When they reach the southern Serengeti during the rains, they do not arrive to admire fresh grass. They arrive to give birth. In a matter of weeks, hundreds of thousands of calves may be born almost at once. Needs verification. I have always felt that this is one of the harshest scenes in nature, and one of the strangest. The ground is still wet from rain. A newborn touches the law of this land almost immediately. It shakes its head, tries to pull in air, tries to gather its legs beneath its body, and then it stands. Many cows are on their feet within minutes. Not long after that, they must walk and run beside their mothers. Needs. Verification. On this land, childhood is so short, it almost does not exist. I watch a mother turn back, waiting for the exact instant her calf sways toward her. It is not tenderness in the way humans usually mean it. It is a command from life itself. Move, get up, follow me. If you are late, death will notice. Wildebeest are not elegant. They do not have the clean lines of zebra, the heavy menace of buffalo, or the hard precision of predators. But that very awkwardness says something about what this body is for. Deep chest for distance, strong shoulders for pulling through cracked ground, river mud, and low-rises. A nervous system linked to the herd through calls, movement, scent, orientation, and what scientists often describe as a form of collective intelligence. Needs. Verification. When one cluster changes direction, the wave can travel quickly through thousands of bodies. No commander is needed. No leader stands apart. The herd writes its own reaction. The river always lowers my guard in the first seconds. Flat surface. A few small ripples. Black mud banks cutting a dark wound through the grassland. No dust. No roar. No visible chase to announce that violence is about to begin. And then I remember, at the Mara, the things that move least are often the things that matter most. The Nile crocodile is a design that needs almost no introduction. Long body, thick jaws, heavy tail, eyes, ears, and nostrils raised high so most of the animal can remain submerged. Large individuals may exceed 5 meters in length. Needs. Verification. Weighing hundreds of kilograms, sometimes more needs. Verification. That armored skin is not a prehistoric costume. It is the outer layer of a creature that has lived with mud, murky water, hard sun, and long waiting far too efficiently to waste movement. During the river crossing season, the banks of the Mara stop being riverbanks. They become a theater of compressed panic. Thousands of wildebeest crowd together, push, back away, grunt, and call through thick throats. The smell of old mud, dark water, dung, and rotting grass hangs low in the air. None of them wants to go first. None of them can remain on the bank forever. Behind them is pressure from the herd. In front of them, current and a surface that reveals nothing. I have watched those seconds of hesitation longer than almost any hunt. One animal lifts its head, one stamps into the mud, one slips half a step and recoils. and the first one jumps, and the entire bank collapses into motion behind it. Water erupts, bodies collide, horned heads push through current. That is when the crocodile acts. No wasted gesture, no drama for the sake of drama. Just a dark mass exploding upward from the water. Jaws closing on neck or muzzle, wrenching balance away from the surface. Then comes the death roll, the whole body becoming a living axis of torque beneath the muddy water. Needs verification. The crocodile's strength is not built on sustained speed, nor on prolonged pursuit. It is built on efficiency. It waits in order to spend as little movement as possible. At the exact second movement matters most. What chills me most about crocodiles is not the attack itself. It is the context behind it. This is not a newly learned skill, not a clever improvisation from one good season. The crocodile body has retained many of its core structural features for tens of millions of years. Needs verification. In other words, when a crocodile lies beneath the Mara, waiting for a wildebeest herd to commit to the crossing, I am looking at a very old memory of Earth still functioning. There is something almost pre-human in that patience. But crocodiles are not only jaws in mud. Females dig nests on the bank, lay eggs, and guard them for weeks to months. Needs verification. When needs verification. When the hatchlings begin to call from inside the eggs, the mother uncovers the nest and carries them to the water in the same mouth, capable of tearing through an adult wildebeest's neck. That detail always stops me. The same jaw, the same bones and muscle. At once an instrument of devastating force and a temporary cradle. Nature does not feel any need to separate those roles just to make us comfortable. And here again, I am pushed back toward the same old question. Why can such power and such care coexist in the same body without contradiction? On the scale of the ecosystem, crocodiles do something enormous. They make the river crossing a real test. Not every animal in the herd reaches the far side. The weaker, the slower, the more panicked, or simply the unlucky ones who enter at the wrong angle may be held back. It sounds ruthless, but without that pressure, the migration would not remain the intense, selective force that it is. The cycle of grass, predators, carcasses, nutrients, and evolutionary pressure depends in part on those jaws beneath the river's surface. Every time the water grows calm again, as though nothing happened, I understand a little more about silence. Silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes it is only the pause between two rounds of nature's choosing. And when the last wildebeest claws its way up the opposite bank, blowing water from its nostrils and leaving a wet trail in the grass, it does not turn back to look at the river. It keeps moving. I think that may be the deepest lesson the migration gives me. Survival does not always grant time to understand loss. Sometimes survival is simply having enough left to keep going. Pause. Some pay with speed, some with endurance, some by stepping into danger first, some by giving blood so the grass returns, some by waiting so long they almost become part of the mud and water. That is the law of this land. Not soft, not slow, but because of that, it is real. If you still feel something rise in you at the sound of hooves moving through grass, if you still catch your breath at the sight of a newborn standing for the first time, if you believe stories like this deserve to keep being told, then stay with me. Subscribe to the channel. So these migrations, these hunts, these landscapes that still need to be remembered do not vanish from our shared memory simply because they are far away. And if you can, support responsible tourism, credible conservation work, and the voices trying to keep living corridors open for the species that depend on them. Because sometimes what human beings can do is not save nature with one grand gesture. Sometimes it is simply refusing to break the rhythm that nature has been holding together for millions of years.